Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Open Mic here on my YouTube channel. Of course, The Daily Show, where all it is an open forum to talk about whatever topics or subjects you guys want us to talk about. That's right. It's just all up to you guys. Now, listen, guys, I'm going to let you know right now, chances are I may not have a chance to get to every single question that gets sent in, but if for whatever reason I don't get to a question that you send in, don't worry. I'll include it on a supplemental video tomorrow, sometime after the John Campea show. So don't you worry about that. So send on in your questions. Let's start talking about stuff. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the movies opening up this weekend? Do you want to talk about some of the things that are in the news? Do you got some other question that's completely unrelated? Go ahead on in, send in those questions, and you guys are the program directors today. All right, so let's get things rolling here with the first question today, and the honor of the first question today goes to Rodrigo Ortiz. Congratulations, Rodrigo. For being our first question today, you win respect. The first question says, after watching Batman vs. Superman, I walked away so sad / disappointed, and I asked myself, really, Snyder? That's the best you could have done? Waited 3 years for this? Well, and that's the subjectivity of film, Rodrigo. I mean, there were people that had that response and that reaction. I was in the minority that I liked Batman vs. Superman. I had a good time with it. Like, did I have issues with it? Sure, I had some issues with it. But overall, I still had fun with it. I mean, the actual fight of Batman fighting Superman, I thought was spectacular. Even though they should have done a much better job with Doomsday, the fight itself, I thought was great, and the action in it was fantastic. I loved the Batman character that Ben Affleck gave us in that movie. I loved it. So yeah, and then I also had some problems with it, but I was one of those people that I enjoyed it. But you're not alone, Rodrigo. There were a number of people clearly that were a little disillusioned with the movie, that weren't quite all that happy with it. And I still contend, some people say, but John, all the problems were fixed with the 3+ hour Ultimate Edition. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. I still contend that the Ultimate Edition was a little bit better. I think it was better, but I think it was just a little bit better. They didn't take out anything in the film. They just added another 25 minutes of material or 20 minutes of material, however much more material they put back in, which I think rounded out the movie. But if you put in more material and cut some material out and rearrange the edits a little bit, I think they could have done a lot more. But anyway, it's the movie that we ended up with, and I'm sorry that you didn't like it. I did. I wish it was better so that more people would enjoy it, but hey man, it is what it is. Don't apologize for not liking a film. All right, next one also comes to us from Rodrigo, who wrote, Ben Affleck was great though. Shame he won't be our Batman. Yeah, I mean, it's also a shame. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of Matt Reeves. Big fan of Matt Reeves. And I'm very happy he's directing a Batman movie, but I am more bummed out about Ben not directing a Batman movie. That was probably the thing I was most geeked out about, was seeing Ben Affleck direct a Batman movie. So I'm actually even more bummed out that he's not directing a Batman movie than I am about the fact that he's not going to be our Batman anymore. Or at least he's going to be, his run as Batman is coming to an end very soon. Rex Cousins writes, hey John, Daredevil Season 2 was released over 2 years ago. Do you think releasing seasons so far apart has negative effect on TV shows? Yes and no. Because remember, we also got Daredevil in Defenders after that. But John, that's not Daredevil. Yeah, but it kind of was Daredevil. So, I mean, you can't just ignore Daredevil's a full season of television that featured Daredevil. So I think that's perfectly fine. I think the audience, we didn't, like, it's not like 2 years ago was the last time we saw, Matt on screen. It was in the Defenders, which is just this past year. So can a big multi-year gaps hurt the momentum of shows? Yes, they could. But I don't think that applies here with Daredevil because, like I said, we just got him last year, and I think that counts. All right. Orange Hand writes, someone in the second Knights of the Old Republic game said most people see no difference between Jedi and Sith and hate all Force users, like how normal people in comics distrust anyone with powers. Is this hatred justified? I don't know. Remember, too, that the game you're referencing isn't canon. So, poof, it doesn't really exist. Plus, I think most people in the galaxy are, like, in the canon universe, I think most people in the galaxy admire the Jedi. Like, for instance, when Qui-Gon and Padme and Jar Jar came across Anakin, and he's like, "Are you a Jedi?" He's like, "No one can kill a Jedi." Like, that's probably, the mentality about Jedi in the universe. They were the peacekeepers. They were the bringers of justice, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know that just because, it's an interesting sentiment to mention in a game, but I never have seen that actually come to fruition in a canon story that, just the average public didn't like Jedi and the average public didn't like Sith. I don't know that I've ever seen it kind of play out that way. If so, I don't know that it would be justified either. Like, unless the Jedi were accidentally behind some major cataclysm that caused devastation to a lot of people, but I just can't think of any of that off the top of my head. And again, remember, that Knights of the Old Republic game is not canon, so it doesn't really count at any rate. Thanks off the question, Orange Hand. All right, the next one comes to us from Kalis Menon, who writes, thoughts on Obama collaborating with Netflix to make shows? Yeah, for those who haven't heard about this, Netflix is in negotiations with President Obama and Michelle Obama about making a series of shows. And the press release that I read was basically about that what they're talking about is shows that really highlight, it sounds like they're going to be documentary in nature. I don't know this for sure, but it sounds like these shows would be documentary in nature that highlight the best of the human spirit, that highlight the power of hope, that highlight the power in belief in your fellow, mankind. The kind of stories that highlight, the importance, in faith and hope and all that kind of stuff, and just the things that bring out the best in humanity. And the other thing that they mentioned, and this is key, is that the shows that they're looking at maybe putting together and these stories that they want to tell have nothing to do with politics. They won't be political, they said, but just really kind of highlighting the best of what the American spirit is, the best of what humanity is, and stories of hopes and dreams and just all really good stuff. And I thought it was really important that they pointed out that these shows would have no connection to politics. They wouldn't be about any kind of political agenda. Of course, if they make a story about, a gay guy who overcomes some obstacle and is supported and loved and blah, 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 I'm sure there'll be some people says that's political. No, it's not. Human stories are not political. So I think that was key. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing because, look, I don't care what your political affiliation is. I don't think in my lifetime there has been a leader who can inspire the way that Barack Obama did. You may or may not have liked some of his policies. You may or may not have voted for him and all that. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm not here to discuss that, but you cannot deny. I remember hearing John McCain talk about that once. Like it's tough. I remember McCain once said something, it's hard to fight inspiration. It's hard to fight inspiration. And that's what Barack Obama seems to really do. And I just watched a recent, the first episode of David Letterman's new show. I think it's called My Next Guest or something like that, where David Letterman, and it's crazy. So Letterman's new show is just him in an auditorium with a full crowd. And the crowd does not know who his guest is going to be. And it's just a one-on-one, 1 hour long conversation. And it's crazy because apparently the audience doesn't know who the guest is going to be. And David Letterman comes out and goes, so the first guest for my very first show, President Barack Obama. And Obama comes out and people lose their minds. And just the stories he told, the interview was inspiring. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. Go check it out. And somebody like that, who's got that worldview on America, on the power of hope, the power of belief in each other, all that kind of stuff, trying to navigate with Netflix shows that do the same, I'm all on board for it. I think it could be great. Could be a total dumpster fire too, but it could be great. All right. Next one comes to us from Sujith, who writes, hey, John, I know why Batman is delayed. Warner Brothers is finding a way to bring back Hitchcock with the mother box. Jokes aside, if only he was alive today, it'd be really interesting. A friend of mine and I had a discussion about that recently, about Hitchcock. And if Hitchcock were around today, what kinds of films would he be making today? because when Hitchcock was making films, he pushed the envelope in every way possible. And if now we lived in today, if he lived in today's age, where so many of those boundaries have already been pushed, how far would he go as a filmmaker? It's a fascinating thing to think about. All right, next question comes to us from David Crabtree, who writes, a slight climate observation, but I think it's beyond debate that July 1994 was the hottest month in human history. Side note, both True Lies and The Mask were released in July of 1994. Think about it. Really, were they both released in the same month? What a great month. True Lies, you guys might have heard me say this, True Lies is my all-time favorite action film. It's my all-time favorite action film. I love True Lies. It is so fun. It's so funny. The action is terrific. It's Arnold at his best. The chemistry between him and Tom Arnold, who I've never liked Tom Arnold in anything else, but Tom Arnold was great in this movie. Jamie Lee Curtis was amazing. Oh my goodness. Tia Correa, who was like one of the hottest villains ever. Just, I love that movie. And The Mask, man, The Mask is a movie I must have watched 500 times. And the fact that you had, I still think, the hottest female character, not actress, but female character, I think in any movie for me all time, which was Cameron Diaz in The Mask. Cameron Diaz in The Mask. Cameron Diaz is always a beautiful woman, for sure. But Cameron Diaz in The Mask was just, I don't think I've ever seen a sexier character in a movie than Cameron Diaz in The Mask. So if you're right about that, and I have no reason to doubt you, David, if you're right about that, what a hell of a month in the history of film, July 1994. I got to keep that in mind. The month that both True Lies and The Mask came out. That's amazing. Viper91 writes, hey, John, was wondering, how much does an editor have, how much say does an editor have when putting together a film? Can he decide to cut scenes, or does he need permission? Oh, he absolutely needs permission. The director is the be-all, end-all, final buck stops here person. The editor is there to use their editing skills and their editing eye to accomplish the vision of the director. By all means, it's the director. Now, what an editor can do is make cuts and do things like that, and then show it to the director and say, this is what I was thinking. Like, what will happen sometimes, like a director will say, okay, give me this, and this. And the editor will do that. And then the editor might have some ideas, and they might do a couple of other little different things. And then what will happen is they'll sit down with the director. And sometimes some directors just like to sit in the edit room all the time with the editor. Not all directors do that. And say, here's kind of what I think you were asking for. Now, I did a couple of variations. I did this, and I did this, and I did this. But the bottom line is, it's the director's decision. Everything is the director's decision. But much like everything else, every other role in a movie, a director will trust his lighting. A director will trust his cinematographer. A director will trust his editor. He gives the vision. It's their job to carry out his vision, but also to give ideas, to give options, to all those things, and then leave the ultimate decision up to the director at the same time, but to bring their expertise to the table. And a director will take some of those suggestions and reject some of the suggestions. Same thing is true of editors. So yes, a great editor might be the single most valuable asset to a director. A great editor, I think more than cinematography, I think more than almost anything else, the greatest, most important tool available to a director is a great editor. So anyway, that's because, they often say you shoot the movie, but the story is told in the edit, right? And because it's all about the editing. Anyway, Sujith follows up and writes, the creators of Batman anime series have said they copied Mark's gestures with the Joker animation when he was acting out his scenes in the recording booth. Yeah, I'm sure there's some influence there, but it's not motion capture. It's not Mark Hamill's performance. Mark Hamill does a great job as the voice, and while they may take some visual cues, it's not motion capture. It's a totally different thing. So I wouldn't give the movement credit to Mark Hamill in that. As big of a fan as I am of Mark Hamill, my co-star, Mark Hamill's given me permission on Twitter to call him my co-star of The Last Jedi since I'm on the Blu-ray. I wouldn't go that far. That's, to me, it's a bit of a stretch. Mason Barr writes, I have a theory that Iron Man dies in Infinity War. Well, lots of people have that theory, Mason. I have a theory that Iron Man dies in Infinity War because of Iron Spider hype that Marvel is giving us. Sounds to me like I'm in the minority. What do you think? I don't think they'll kill him. I really don't. Like, he is financially speaking, the most successful character they have. No, I don't. I got to look this up, but let me see. Got to look this up. I don't think any standalone Marvel movie has made as much as Iron Man 3. As of right now, Iron Man 3 is still the top grossing Marvel standalone movie. It's still ahead of Black Panther. Black Panther may catch it because right now Iron Man 3 stands at 2.1 or 1.2, I should say, billion dollars. $1.2 billion. Black Panther right now stands at just shy of 1.1. Black Panther will probably catch Iron Man 3. Not much beyond that, but massively successful with Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, major player in Spider-Man, major player in Avengers. I just don't see them killing him. I think it would be short-sighted. Somebody brought up the other day that, Transformers nosedived in popularity and toy sales after that Transformers movie, animated movie came out where they killed off Optimus Prime. Now, they killed off a whole lot of other characters too, don't forget that, but I think there's something there to be said about that. I don't think they're going to kill off their most popular character. I just don't see it happening. Let's see. Joe Rapazzo. I mean, you never know. They totally could. Stranger things have happened. Joe Rapazzo writes, "Hey, John, I got to meet Tim Curry, John Carpenter, Sean Astin, and Tony Todd, Candyman, over the weekend at a horror convention called Monster Mania Con. Do you ever go to conventions like this? Very rarely, unless they're local. I've gone to a couple of local ones, but I won't travel to smaller conventions just because it's expensive to travel. So I don't get to go to a lot of, I don't go to a lot of the major ones like South by Southwest. I'm not out at the big film festival right now, which after they premiered Ready Player One and A Quiet Place, no way in hell I'm not going to South by Southwest next year. I'm going to definitely go to South by Southwest next year. But I very rarely get to go to these smaller ones, especially the ones that are outside of Los Angeles. Because again, it's expensive, man. It's expensive to book a flight somewhere, book a hotel, your meals. When it's all said and done, what seems like just an easy little trip can end up costing like $1,200-$1,400. That's gone like that. And I know you all think I am a rich millionaire with sophisticated tastes. Assure you I am not. On any of those fronts. So I really don't have the money that I can just drop to go and do something like that. So no, I don't. But it sounds like you had a great time, man. That's what these festivals are great for, that you can meet some of these legends. I've also had a chance to meet, I have not met John Carpenter. He's the one guy on your list I haven't met. I've met Tim Curry. I've met Sean Astin. I've met Tony Todd. But I've never met John Carpenter, which would actually be a really cool thing to meet him. So I'm thrilled that you had a chance to do that at this festival. Stone Matt writes, over under 50%. Cap says the classic Avengers Assemble. You know what? I'm going to take the under on that because I think they may save that for Avengers 4. I think they may save that because somebody asked today on the John Campea show if I think we're going to see Captain America and Iron Man together in Avengers Infinity War. And I actually don't even think we're going to see them together. I think it's pretty telling that when that big epic battle in Wakanda is taking place, Iron Man isn't anywhere to be seen. So neither is Doctor Strange, but the Hulk is, and we see Mark Ruffalo with Tony in some shots, and now we see the Hulk with Captain America and Wakanda. I still don't think we're going to see them together. I don't think we're going to see all the Avengers together until Avengers 4. I could be totally wrong about that. I'm just guessing, but I'm going to take the under on the 50%. Spencer Smothers writes, I enjoyed the last episode of The Flash, but how did Jesse breach to Earth 3 twice to get Jay and bring him back when Cisco couldn't open the breach? I believe she used a machine correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure she uses a machine that does that at Star Labs. So, I think completely separated from all the radiation and the heat and all that kind of stuff that was coming off the bomb. I don't think she just breached herself. She goes back to Star Labs to the machine they have for breaching in and out of those of Earth 3. That's how I think she did it. I'd have to go back and watch the episode again, but I'm I'm pretty sure that's how she does it. Okay. Next one comes to us from and by the way, I really like that episode of The Flash as well. I really quite like that one. All right. Next episode comes to us from The Impossible Something, who writes, if you never watched Doctor Who, I'd at least recommend listening to the music. I think it's one of the best TV soundtracks, amazing on its own. I doubt it. I'm not doubting that you think it's amazing. I'm just saying I doubt I would find it amazing. I only generally like soundtracks when I can listen to them because they make my mind, they make my imagination relive the movie or relive those scenes and all that kind of stuff. And since I don't watch Doctor Who, I really, really doubt that the soundtrack would have the same impact on me, unfortunately. Greetings from Gallifrey, who writes, hey, John, update on a new Conan movie with Arnie. I don't think it's going to happen. Like, he kept talking about how it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But now there's a Conan TV show in development that I don't think Arnie is involved with at all. I haven't heard anything official, but I think that whole concept is dead. I don't think we're getting another Conan movie. I could be wrong about that, but with the announcement of a TV show and all that kind of stuff, I don't think we're going to see Arnie as Conan again. Sam Fisher writes, what are your thoughts on Alan Cumming and his work? Well, I like Alan Cumming. I particularly loved his take in X-Men 2 as Nightcrawler, which for a long time, I thought X-Men 2 was the greatest comic book movie ever made. Once that movie came out, I thought it was the best comic book movie ever made, and it was my opinion for a number of years before some other ones came out that took its place. But that introduction of X-Men 2 with Nightcrawler attacking the White House, it stands up today. But at the time, it was one of the most mind-blowing action sequences I had ever seen. I just thought it was spectacular. And Alan Cumming in that role was great. And, we've seen him do some great stuff. I just watched him recently in this past year in Battle of the Sexes with Emma Stone and Steve Carell about the Billie Jean King story. And I thought it was a smaller supporting role, but I thought he was really good in that. I like Alan Cumming. I mean, he's done the odd thing that isn't so great, like, for instance, Son of the Mask, but I like Alan Cumming as a performer. I like him as an actor. Let's see. Adam K. writes, what do we got here? Adam K. writes, thoughts on Alpha trailer, the boy and wolf story. It's an interesting trailer. If it's supposed to be like the origin of how dogs became man's best friend and how we've come to have dogs as pets, I don't know, that's a little corny, but the trailer in and of itself, I find pretty riveting. I liked it. I'm curious to see the movie. It didn't blow my socks off, but I thought it had some heart to it. I'm a lover of dogs. I love dogs. I've had dogs my whole life. I will always have dogs. I love dogs. So any movie about a boy and his dog, or a dude and his dog, or a girl and her dog will always get my attention. And this one certainly looked like it has some promise and some appeal, so I'm looking forward to it. Padrak Conway writes, Daredevil hallway fight versus Cap's highway battle. Which Cap highway battle are we talking about? Are we talking about the one where he's fighting Black Panther? Are we talking about the one where he's fighting Winter Soldier? Since I'm not sure which one we're talking about, so I can't really say. I will comment on this. The Daredevil hallway fight is fantastic. I love that fight. But you got to be a little bit more specific when you're asking your questions. Greetings from Gilfroy writes again, best actor without an Oscar? I say Ben Foster. Your thoughts? Oh, I love Ben Foster. First of all, he's got a small role, but I believe his small role set the entire tone for the movie in this great little horror film called 30 Days of Night, which, oddly enough, was the first date movie that Ann and I had. I invited Ann over to my place. This was Netflix and chill, basically. Said, hey, I just got this copy of this new movie. It's really great. It's a great little horror movie. Want to come over? That was our first movie day, was her coming over to my place to watch it. Scary ones, jump into your lap. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, and here we are 9 years later married. So anyway, so he was terrific in that. But And he's terrific in everything. He was terrific in the Mechanic, opposite of Jason Statham. He was so good in that. But if you really want to see just how good Ben Foster is, how about you put him in a movie with two of the biggest powerhouse actors in the world today, Christian Bale and Russell Crowe. And he upstages both of them. And that's 3:10 to Yuma. And when you drop him in a movie, those guys, and he actually outacts Russell Crowe, who I believe is top 3 best actors in the world right now, and Christian Bale, who's also got to be in the top 10, and he outacts both of them, that's a heavyweight talent. Ben Foster is a heavyweight talent. I still do not think he is the best actor without an Oscar. I do not think he's as good of an actor as, say, Ralph Fiennes is. I still would edge out Jake Gyllenhaal over him a little bit. And there's a couple of others that I might put in line in front of Ben Foster, but Ben Foster is a special, special, special talent. How this guy is not a mainstay, A-list, go-to leading man for more studios is beyond me, because his talent is impeccable. I love that dude. And of course, he was the first incarnation of Angel in X-Men 3. Remember, he was Angel in X-Men 3. X-Men 3. Okay, let's see. Next one comes to us from, where did it go here? Maybe One Name writes, worst sequel, Evan Almighty, Zoolander 2, Anchorman 2, or speaking of, Son of the Mask, which I just referenced. Oh, that's easy, Son of the Mask. Evan Almighty is not wretched. It's not a great sequel, but it's not wretched. Zoolander 2 is pretty bad, but I gotta admit, I had some laughs in it, so while it's bad, I'm not going to call it gutter bottom wretched. Anchorman 2, big step down from the first Anchorman, but I had a number of laughs. I had some big laughs in that movie, so I'm not going to say it's bottom of the gutter wretched. Son of the Mask was bottom of the gutter wretched, with the aforementioned Alan Cumming playing Loki. Horrible movie. To me, that question's easy. It's Son of the Mask is the worst one. Chris Bradford writes, what is your favorite Marvel Netflix show? Oh, Daredevil. Daredevil's my favorite. I really like Punisher. Punisher, they delivered more in Punisher than I thought they would. I got more out of that Punisher show than I thought. And I had some apprehensions. Before Daredevil Season 2, when they announced John Bernthal as Daredevil, I had my apprehensions. But he was a great Punisher in Daredevil Season 2, and then he outdid himself with Punisher Season 1, which I thought was terrific. But still, Daredevil. Daredevil to me is the best show that they've got going, and remains that to this day for me personally. Let's see, next one. Dr. Panders writes, do you know if the Russo brothers are still making the Warriors TV series? To the best of my knowledge, yes, but I don't think they're going to be directing it or showrunning. I think they're probably going to be writing some stuff and maybe act as producers. They'll probably get another showrunner in there. I don't know all the details about it, but to the best of my knowledge, which is limited, to the best of my knowledge, that's still happening. I haven't heard anything to the contrary. If you guys have heard something to the contrary, do me a favor, jump down to the comment section and leave a link. Let people know. As a matter of fact, here's the latest update on the Russo brothers and Warriors. Put in a link and share it around. Let's take advantage of the fact that we've got a big film fan community here and share the knowledge, folks. All right. Greetings from Gilfrey. Oops. Lots of questions have come in, and I'm trying to find out where I left off. Wow, there are a lot of questions. Here we go. Okay, so best actor without an Oscar. Do you know? Here we go. Greetings from Gallifrey writes, what are your thoughts on the rebooted Hawaii Five-0 show with Alex O'Lawton and Scott Caan? They are on the 8th season now. It's my favorite TV show. Never watched an episode. Never watched a single episode. I know a couple of the actors who were in it for the first 6 seasons or so left because there was such a huge pay disparity between them. Even though the show has 4 leads, there was a massive pay disparity between the 2 Asian actors who were in the 2 lead Asian actors and the 2 white dude actors. And apparently there was a massive pay discrepancy between them. And the 2 Asian, one was the girl from Lost, and the dude, I'm forgetting where the dude was from. But anyway, they weren't even asking for equal pay. They just wanted closer. And the show said, nope. and they parted ways, which is too bad. So that's the only thing it's unfortunate. The only thing I really know about Hawaii Five-0 is the controversy surrounding it and what led to a couple of their main cast leaving. I don't really know anything else about the show, but I mean, it's going on 8 seasons. It's got to be doing something right? I mean, it's got to be doing something right. Let's see. Next one comes us from Justin Wilson, who writes, "Hey, John, what are your expectations for Lady Gaga in the upcoming A Star is Born with Bradley Cooper? Are you familiar with her acting work? Thanks. Not that familiar. Look, I'm a big fan of Lady Gaga. I remember she came out on the Oscar stage and they to pay tribute to The Sound of Music, singing The Sound of Music is Lady Gaga. And like everybody else in America, I went, oh my God, why the hell would you get Lady Gaga to sing The Sound of Music? That song is royalty. You don't get anybody other than the original to sing that song. Oh my God, Lady Gaga at the Oscars is coming out to sing Sound of Music. She's going to butcher it. I'm getting ready to plug my ears. And she crushed it. Lady Gaga gained me as a fan of just her pure talent that day, because that song ain't easy to sing. That song is not easy to sing. And she came out and she tore through that song like butter, man. She crushed that song. And I was just in awe. Absolutely in awe. I didn't know. I've heard her pop songs and some are catchy, some aren't. But clearly the girl can sing. But to sing like that, she made a believer out of me that day. And I know she made a believer out of a hell. Do you guys remember that performance she did at the Oscars? It was like, where did that come from? Anyway. But you guys also know my general feeling, but I do not like non-actors just being handed leading roles. I don't like it. Now, I don't really know her acting history, so hopefully I'll be pleasantly surprised. To me, just handing big leading roles to people who aren't even really actors is a spit in the face to hardworking actors everywhere who dedicate most of their lives to training and improving their craft and becoming the best that they can. And it's a spit in their face. That's just how I kind of interpret it. But I mean, who knows? For all I know, she's going to be the greatest actress in the world. I have no idea. My expectations are minimal. Now, she's going to be acting across from a powerhouse actor in Bradley Cooper, who, if she has some deficiencies, I'm sure he'll be able to pick up some of the slack and carry her a little bit. But because of the situation the way it is, I don't have high expectations for it. But, we'll wait and see. She has surprised me before. All right, let's move on here. Adam K. writes, bigger VFX achievement, The Jungle Book or Apes? I'm going to go Apes. What you got in The Jungle Book was sick crazy. Sick crazy. But it was all CGI. Other than Mowgli, that entire movie is CGI. Everything. What they did with apes, blending in these hundreds of apes and other elements as well, with live action throughout the film and make it flawless. I've got to give the edge to the Planet of the Apes. I'll give the edge to the Planet of the Apes on that one. Ben Rayner writes, Daniel Day-Lewis starting YouTube channel, new vid every 8 months. I don't know if that's a joke or not. I have no idea. But if that's true, I have no idea. Never heard of it. If it's a joke, it's a joke. I mean, probably playing off the fact that Daniel Day-Lewis does one film every 3 years. Greetings from Gallifrey writes, best rapper turned actor, Ice Cube, 50 Cent, Tupac, LL Cool J, Common, or T.I. Your thoughts, which one of these rappers is the better actor? I'm actually, LL Cool J has done some really cool stuff. He's relied more on his natural charm and charisma than just pure acting talent. I'm going to say Common. Yeah, I'm going to say Common. Common has turned in some really decent performances. Not just decent for an actor, decent for a rapper, but legit decent performances. So yeah, and Ice Cube, 50 Cent. Ice Cube in his element can be really great and really funny. 50 Cent can be all right. Tupac, LL, T.I. I'm going to go Common. Common will be the one I go with on that one. Chris Warden writes, When a big blockbuster movie has multiple studios involved, with one handling production and the other the distribution, is the production studio or the distribution studio that finances and oversees the marketing. The distributors finance and oversee the marketing. That's what the distributors take care of all of that. Production of the movie is all about making the movie and producing the movie. When it comes to everything regarding the marketing and the distribution, that's the preview of the purview, I should say, of the distribution company. Now, look, I'm not going to pretend to be a full scholar on or like know everything about the world of distribution, but that is the fundamental difference. That once the movie is made, essentially once the movie's made, everything else after that is the purview of the distribution company. Getting it to theaters, where it gets into theaters, how many theaters it gets into, how you market the damn thing, all that kind of stuff is usually the distributor. Now, most major studios these days, most of the time for the majors, they operate as their own production company and as their own distributor. Every once in a while, you get some shared stuff. You'll get some studio. A lot of times, smaller production companies make their own movies, and then a big company comes along and acts as the distributor. Sometimes we've seen rare cases where like Warner Brothers will produce a film and like Universal will distribute or something like that. It's rare. For the most part, the bigger studios handle their own production and distribution. A lot of times, though, the vast majority of time, any of these studios that aren't the big majors, they need to then team up with one of the big distributors to do the distribution. But yeah, marketing, the financing and the marketing, the strategy of the marketing and all that kind of stuff all belongs to the distribution company. Unless there are some rare exceptions to that contractually, for the most part, that's the way it works. ZOMG Ruler writes, I tweeted you interview. Also thoughts on, you tweeted me interview. I'm not sure what we're talking about. Thoughts on Amadeus. I love Amadeus. It's one of the first films that I watched and was like really started to appreciate what great filmmaking was. And I was a lot younger when that happened. But yeah, I love Amadeus. I think Amadeus is great. Matt Thornton writes, are there any movies that are so good and yet so sad that you couldn't watch it again? Grave of the Fireflies, that was going to be one of the first ones that I mentioned, was Grave of the Fireflies. A Boy in Striped Pajamas is another one. Schindler's List is one. That's just not one I can rewatch many times. I don't think I'll ever be able to watch Detroit again. You know, I was talking about Detroit earlier today on the John Campea show. It's such a magnificent movie. I don't know that I could ever watch it again, though. Because it's disturbing. It's so brilliantly put together, but so disturbing. That I would have a hard time watching that as well. But yeah, Grave of the Fireflies is probably one I will never watch again. I just can't imagine me watching that one again, man. It's just so utterly depressing. Javier Barrera 90 writes, most likely to die, Captain America or Iron Man? Neither. I've said that I really don't think either one of them are going to die. Hudson Smith writes, who is the stupidest superhero as far as ability? I don't know. All right, I'll go. Remember the Wonder Twins? The girl, they go, Wonder Twin powers activate, and they put their hands together, and she'd be like, shape of, a mountain lion, and turn into whatever animal she wants, right, to be vicious. And him would be like, shape of a bucket of water. And because he would just turn into something that was water-based. I will go with him. And being like constantly, they tried to hype it up. It's like, how can I get, even as a little kid watching Super Friends, I'm like, hey, this dude's lame. He got the short end. She can turn into a gorilla and tear people apart. He's going to turn into a bucket of water. Watch. Shape of a bucket of water. I'll go him. He's the stupidest. Maybe One Name writes, do you think we'll ever see a Boondock Saints 3? I doubt it. I don't think so. And I love the Boondock Saints. And I think there was some hope there being turned up. But if you look into all the behind the scenes drama around the Boondock Saints franchise, it makes it very unlikely. Plus, every year that passes makes it even more unlikely. So probably not. I don't think we're ever going to get a Boondock Saints, which is really too bad because I love the Boondock Saints. I think they're great. Greetings from Gallifrey again writes, with Lesnar leaving WWE after WrestleMania, with him returning to UFC, do you think we will get a Lesnar versus Miocic title fight, and who would win? Well, let's be clear. First of all, Stipe Miocic has to beat Daniel Cormier. And I'm not 100% sure he's going to be able to beat Daniel Cormier. I mean, DC is a beast. So, I mean, he's going to have to beat Cormier first. If he beats Cormier and if he's still champion, you can't give Brock Lesnar a title shot out of the like right out of the gun. You can't do that. Brock Lesnar has only won like 2 of his last 5 fights. You can't just give him a title shot. Now, he won his last fight against Mark Hunt. It was an impressive win. But you would have to get a title shot, Lesnar would have to fight at least one big-name UFC heavyweight. He would have to take on Junior Dos Santos. Junior might be a good fight for him. Stefan Struve's coming off a loss to Andrei Arlovski, but a fight against Stefan Struve could reestablish him as legit. If Cain Velasquez ever gets healthy again, a rematch with Cain Velasquez. Here's the point. Brock Lesnar would have to beat a top 10 ranked heavyweight first. If he could go in, beat a legit top 10 heavyweight first and win in convincing fashion, you can make an argument for marketing's sake for him to get a title shot against Stipe. Stipe will destroy him. Hey, look, Brock Lesnar will be the bigger guy. He'll be the stronger guy. And hey, if Lesnar can get his hands on him and take that fight to the ground, he's got a shot. But Stipe is by far the superior striker. And we've seen Brock Lesnar, as powerful as he is, he's got a little bit of a suspect chin. Because when Brock Lesnar gets hit square, he gets dazed. And Miocic knocks fools out. So Lesnar would have a chance, but I would put my money on Stipe on that for sure. Yeah, I always like talking a little bit of UFC. I love mixed martial arts. Anthony Cullen writes, chances of a Harry Potter sequel with OG cast, pretty much nil. I don't see it happening. I think you could see some people wanting it to happen. I don't see why they would all come back and do it, to be honest with you. I don't think they would. Padriek writes, Hulk, Thor, and Scarlet Witch versus Thanos will be the final fight. Okay, sure. I actually think it's going to be Thanos versus all of the Avengers in the final fight, but you think it's going to be those 3? Why not? Your theory's no better or worse than mine, so why not, man? Digoto writes, how would you rank the new Disney Star Wars? Okay, this is how I would rank. If we're talking The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Rogue One, I will put it number 1, Force Awakens, number 2, Rogue One, number 3, The Last Jedi. I like them all, but my favorite of them has been The Force Awakens. I like that movie more every time I see it. I really enjoyed Rogue One a hell of a lot. And I really quite like The Last Jedi, although I have more issues with The Last Jedi than I do with the other one. So that's how I would rank them myself. Alexander Helmer writes, first ever super chat. Have you seen Whiplash? Yes, fantastic movie. J.K. Simmons wins his Academy Award. Wonderful movie. And the movie that, Miles Teller's got a lot of haters because of he's appeared in a lot of bad movies. Miles Teller can act. I have no problem that Miles Teller didn't get a Best Actor nomination that year, but I think you could have made an argument for him to get a nomination that year. Miles, it's the movie that just shuts up, stops the conversation. Is Miles Teller a good actor? Just watch Whiplash. That ends the conversation. I think he's been quite good in a number of films, to be honest with you. But he was just outstanding to me in that. And one of the unfortunate things about just how good J.K. is in that movie is that it completely overshadowed the great performance that Miles Teller gave in that movie. So, yes, I'm a big fan of that movie. All right, thanks a lot, Alexander. Appreciate that. Esther Cuenca writes, Matt Reeves' news sounds like a reboot. I mean, it sounds like a reboot to me too, but it's not necessarily a reboot. That's why I was really careful not to, about how I presented that, because you're right. If they're looking at setting the direction of all the Bat Family movies that come later, after the direction that he establishes with the Batman movie, it either sounds like a separate universe or a reboot or something like that. But the emphasis there, Esther, is on sounds like. Just because it sounds like that doesn't at all necessarily mean that's what it is. So I'm not going to get my hopes up about it, that it actually means reboot. I mean, I think it's a possibility. I think it's a chance. But I'm not going to get my hopes up too high about it. I just want Matt Reeves to make a Batman movie. just, let's get it done. I mean, take your time, get the movie you want to make, but it's been over, a year since you were announced as the director. Let's get a motor in it, man. Let's get a motor in it. All right, thanks a lot, Esther. Next one comes to us from Sharan Aurora, who writes, have you played Star Wars: The Old Republic? I have it installed on my machine right now. I've played a lot. I played Jedi side. I didn't play Sith. I played the Jedi side. Played a lot. Didn't play anywhere near as much of that game as I played World of Warcraft, but I played a hell of a lot of that game. I played an awful lot of Old Republic. Tom Winberg. Winberg? Is that the proper pronunciation? Interesting last name, and I've never seen that spelling before. Writes, hey, John, been a long-time follower ever since your Man of Steel review. Thank you so much, Tom. Just want to say I love how articulate and clear you are when, not when pronouncing names, apparently. I love how articulate and clear you are when elaborating on your opinions, a la Roger Ebert. Keep bringing the filthy. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. You know what else I really appreciate? I love the comparison to Roger Ebert because there's a part of my communication style that I mimic after Roger Ebert because he was my favorite film critic. Not because of his opinions, because at least 50% of the time I disagreed with him on things. Then why was he your favorite critic? Because of the way he expressed his opinions. That listening to a Roger Ebert movie review or reading a Roger Ebert movie review, even when I disagreed with him, I always felt like I better understood why I liked something or why I didn't like something. Even if Ebert's opinion was opposite of mine, Ebert expressed his opinion in such a way that really helped me clarify why I agreed with him or why I disagreed with him. And to me, that is the best thing a film pundit, a film critic, whatever, can do. And I've never seen it as my job to convince people to think differently. My job is to state my opinion passionately and hopefully articulate it in such a way that if you happen to agree with me, it helps you sharpen your understanding about why you agree with me. And if you disagree with me, it helps you sharpen your understanding about why you disagree. It helps bring more into focus your personal position, whether it agrees with my position or not. And that's what I've always tried to do. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I fail. But it is what I try to do. So that means an awful lot to me that you would mention Roger Ebert, because that is one of the guys that I've taken as one of my inspirations in doing what I do. So thank you so much for that, Tom. I really appreciate it. Connor Diaz writes, thanks for everything, John. You're a true inspiration. Well, thank you, Connor. I appreciate that very much. James Welsh writes, do you think Irishman and ended up on Netflix, wait a second. Do you think Irishman and ended up on Netflix is because studios feared they would lose money, it costing $140 million, and similar movies like Goodfellas, Casino only made $45 and $116. Not to mention the last Martin Scorsese film, was it The Missionary? Is that what it was? Or Silence? It was about missionaries. Silence did not do well at the box office at all. Look, absolutely, the budget, and I think he went over budget. I think the budget they initially pitched was like $115, $120. Does that have something to do with the studios turning him away? Absolutely. I think it's a combination of things. I think it's one, the high budget, and two, they didn't think that movie was going to produce that kind of results. If they thought the movie was awesome and would bring in the money, no problem. But I think they looked at the movie and said, okay, this movie cannot possibly succeed at a budget of 120, as it turns out, $140 million. It can't succeed. It can't. And so they decided to take a pass on. I definitely think that is part of, I think that's part of the circumstances that led to them all passing on the film and for it ultimately ending up in Netflix. And we'll see if Netflix, I'm not thrilled with, generally speaking, with the movies that Netflix picks up. Like the last Cloverfield movie I thought was just bad. It just fell flat. I mean, it wasn't horrendous, bottom of the barrel awful, but it was just flat. I would not watch that again. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. Let's see. Gareth Tucson writes, just watched Annihilation on Netflix UK. Why does this movie not get a cinematic release like the US for 2 weeks or so? Slightly gutted, to be honest. Well, for a couple of reasons. One, it's really expensive to put a movie in theaters because then if you're going to put it in theaters, now you got to engage a marketing campaign. Marketing campaigns are expensive. And they simply believed, hey, we're not going to make that money back. we would spend more money putting this thing in theaters and doing a marketing campaign for it. We would spend more money on that than we'd actually make back. And looking at the financial results of it in the United States, they're absolutely right. They would have lost money putting it in theaters. I mean, it's just the facts. I mean, look, I can open up here I'm going to open up Box Office Mojo here just so we can take a peek at this. But where did it go? Annihilation right now is in its third or fourth week, and grand total, it's made, I mean, goodness gracious, grand total, it's made $26 million. I mean, that's why. Why didn't they put in more theaters in other places? That's why. Because they would have lost money, and you would have had to have done a completely different marketing campaign in a different market. You would have had to put into theaters, all that kind of stuff. Wouldn't have made financial sense. It would not have made financial sense. So that's why they took a pass on it. Greetings from Gallifrey writes again. You've been busy today, man. Luke Evans for Bond. Your thoughts? You know what I'm going to say? Any good actor for whatever role. Sure. Why not? Luke Evans is a good actor. You want him as Bond? Sure. Why not? Javier Belmer writes, hey, speaking of Jon Favreau, I wanted to recommend people watch Dinner for Five. It's really interesting listening to their filming anecdotes. It's great. I love Filming for Five. The one he was on, I don't know, has he been on one or two? I can't remember. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to remember the first one that I saw. It was like him. Damn, now I'm struggling with who was on it. Was that the one that had Mel Gibson on it? I think, at any rate, anyway, it's a fascinating thing. Look up Dinner for Five with Jon Favreau. You're right. Check it out. It's fascinating. Chris Bradford writes, do you think there's a chance that DC is rebooting and the Matt Reeves Batman movie will be the first movie in their new universe? I think there's a chance. I don't know that it's likely. And this is just me speculating. No insider information here. But I do think there is definitely a chance. I think there's a chance of that, but not necessarily likely. Those are two different things for sure. Adamus95 writes, do you think Lucifer will get a fourth season? You know what? Here's the thing. I certainly hope it does, but I will admit I don't keep a close eye on ratings, so I just don't know how well the show is doing. I'm afraid it won't get a season 4. It certainly deserves a season 4, but I don't know the ratings. I don't know if the ratings will justify it or not. And ultimately, it's the ratings that are going to dictate whether or not it gets season 4. But I'm certainly loving season 3. I'm certainly having a really good time with it so far. Jordan Frey writes, got a few minutes left here, guys. John, any news on when we'll get Doctor Strange 2? Really love the first Doctor Strange and haven't heard much since its release. Love the show. Well, I mean, we've got Doctor Strange is going to be in Avengers. Doctor Strange is going to be in Avengers Part 2. So there's 3 years in a row that we're getting Doctor Strange in movies. So that should probably placate our appetite for getting another Doctor Strange. But no, I've heard no news about when the next standalone Doctor Strange movie will be. All I know is that we're getting Strange. We got Strange last year. We're getting him this year, and we're getting him next year. So we're going to get a good, healthy dose of Doctor Strange over the next couple of years. Connor Diaz writes, watch every day. Also, you and Anne are the cutest. Well, thank you so much. Well, Anne's the cutest. I'm just the lucky guy who got to marry her. But thank you so much for that, Connor. I appreciate that. Gareth Tucson writes, have you watched Love on Netflix? I love it. Nope. To be honest, off the top of my head, I don't even know what show that is. I can't even think of it, to be honest with you. So no, I have not watched Love on Netflix. But maybe that's one you can jump on, and let me plug it right here. The Stardust app, which you guys know is now one of the sponsors of the show here. Jump on the Stardust app and do a recommendation for Love on Netflix. That's a great way to get the word out about that. Make sure you tag me on that as well. Okay, next one comes to us from Randall Cartwright. I remember you saying Hacksaw Ridge was your number one movie in 2016. How much are you looking forward to Mel's upcoming movie, The Resurrection? Not as much. Not as much. Because I liked, as filmmaking goes, it was great filmmaking. Passion of the Christ was great filmmaking, but it's not a movie for me. So I'm not all that interested in Resurrection, to be honest with you. Patrick writes, MCU TV character you'd like to see in the films? None? Yeah, I'm going to stick with none. I'm quite happy where they are on TV. You don't need the MCU is already overcrowded as it is. No need to throw in some more characters there who already live on the TV universe. Mr. Film writes, why do TV shows use many directors instead of one? I could have swore I answered that one earlier. Yes, I'm almost positive I answered that one a little bit earlier. So head on back and check that out near the beginning of the show. Anthony R. writes, I know you hate the idea of live action Robin. I think it could make a compelling story because Bruce and Dick are alike. And in the movie, we could see Bruce's reasoning for taking a kid on the field. Never. Nope, never going to convince me of that. You want to do a different take on Robin? Where Robin is 19 or 20? And all that. You want to do that? I'm all for it. But the classic Robin? Sorry, no. A live action, more gritty, grounded universe where a 38-year-old man takes a 12-year-old child into a fight with a bunch of mobsters with submachine guns, a child who has no superpowers, he's got a stick. Look, I'll go on the limb. I'll just say this. It's fucking ridiculous. It's a ridiculous notion. Now, some people, when I mention that, go, well, John, you like Kick-Ass and that had Hit Girl. Yes, that's supposed to be a spoof, silly, satirical comedy. Do you want Batman to be a spoof, silly, satirical comedy? If you do, fine. Have a 12-year-old child Robin. Great. But no. Otherwise, no. If you want to make changes to Robin and change that story and say, hey, he was adopted by Bruce at a young age. He's been training with Bruce since age 12, but he's never gone out in the field till he was like 19, 20, 21 when he becomes a man and that kind of stuff. That this Bruce Wayne would then let him come into a life or death situation with guys, not a 13-year-old child, not a 12-year-old child. No, it's a ridiculous notion to me. And again, with the Kick-Ass comparisons, if you want Batman to be a silly, satirical spoof comedy, then fine. But if you're like me and you don't want Batman being a silly, satirical spoof comedy, then no, it doesn't work. There's just no way you can make it look right or look cool where a 30s or early 40s war-torn Batman takes a 12-year-old child with no superpowers into life and death situations. Does not work in a live action screen. Does not work. And I'm convinced of that. Again, change the story and I'm all for it. Change the narrative and I'm all for it. But nothing that starts with a son of a bitch, asshole, grown-ass man taking a child into a gunfight with mobsters. That just does not work for me on any level whatsoever. Not at all. Anthony follows it up with writing, also, if DC does reboot, I think Batman should be younger, 30s at least, so we can him properly develop a relationship over the years with other heroes. I mean, there's an argument to be made for that. Look, I was totally all for the grizzled, seasoned veteran Batman. I was totally all for that. And Ben Affleck could have played Batman for another 10 years. Easy. He could have been playing. Look, if Sylvester Stallone can still make expendable movies in his late 60s, Ben Affleck could have been making Batman movies for another 10 years. No problem. But I'm with you at the same time, Anthony. I have no problem with the idea of going a bit younger. What I don't want to see is a 26-year-old Batman. I'm not interested in that. But, early 30s, mid 30s, maybe even late 30s, I could totally see. I'd be on board with that. I still kind of prefer the old grizzled war veteran Batman, but I could totally see where you're coming from on that. I could get on board with that. Yep, I could jive with that. Emil writes, where do you put Hugh Jackman on the list of best actors having not won an Oscar? That's tough. Where does he go? Probably top 6 or 7. I'd have to sit down and write out a list and then do some thinking about how I would arrange them, but he'd have to be in the top 6 or 7, I would guess. I would think at this point. Not 100% sure about that. Okay. Next one comes to us from Dominic Suma, who writes, hey, John, miss you at Collider. Place isn't the same. Hey, look, I love that I founded that place. I love that I created it, but I love that I've moved on, and I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. But thank you so much for the comment. Javier Belmer writes, wanted to ask your opinion on film editors using temp tracks that often force composers to copy scores. Shouldn't directors look for originality? No. Directors should look for whatever makes the scene work. That's what directors should look for. Directors, the point The soundtrack should never be the star. Much like the visual effects should never be the star. Sometimes they end up being the star, but the role of the music is to make the scene work best. And if the directors and editors get something in their heads that would make the scene work best, then that's what you go with. Or you go with something very similar to that. You don't go for the best piece of music, you go for the music that best suits the scene and kind of creates the tone that the director is looking for. That's the idea. So I'm okay with it. I really am okay with it. It's not about this. The movie isn't for the composer to show off. The movie is for the composer to create a score. This is what made John Williams so brilliant, is he's manages to do both, but is to create a score that matches the vision, to create the tone that the director is looking for in that. And if the director has heard something, that they want something like this, then that's the director. And you do what the director wants. That's what the whole movie is about. So I'm actually okay with it. I really am. Done in the right way. All right, I'll take the next 3 questions and then we'll call it a day. What was that infographic program you used that looked like you were drawing in your video? You used it for the Hulk Rights explanation video. You know what? What was the name of that program? It's been a while since I used it. It was called VideoScribe, is the name of the software that I used for that. It's a little tricky to figure out. Once you do, you still got to use a lot of creativity, but it's pretty handy once you figure it out. But I believe, it's been a while since I used it, but I believe it was called VideoScribe. Hopefully that helps you out, man. PNAJ Aroli writes, any thoughts on the Shazam suit? Well, I don't know, man. I'm a little bit torn. I try not to get too excited or negative about leaked photos that are like behind the scenes shots. I try not to get too excited about those because for all we know, in that scene that we see a picture of, that's not Shazam. For all we know, that's not Shazam. For all we know, that's an actor in a costume that just looks like some superhero. And later when Billy becomes Shazam, he becomes what he envisions as a superhero, which was that. I mean, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm just saying we simply don't know. We don't know what the context of those things are. However, if that picture is legit, and I mean legit as in that's what Shazam looks like in the movie, I'm a little nervous because while it is extremely faithful to the comic book design, in live action, it looks kind of cheesy. And Zachary Levi, while he has gotten himself in really good shape, you can tell it is a padded suit. You can tell the arms have styrofoam in there and cushioning in there to make it look like, you can just tell by looking at it. So, but again, I'm not going to get worked up about it because we don't know the context of those pictures. So on the one hand, hey, that's really close to the comic book design. But on the other hand, in live action, it looks kind of cheesy. So I don't know. We'll just have to see. We'll just have to see how it plays out. Okay, and the final question we'll take today, and don't worry guys, for all of you guys who have sent in other questions, don't worry, they will get addressed on a video tomorrow, guaranteed. Don't worry about it, they will get addressed. Haskell420 writes, Rian Johnson just tweeted that the score-only version of The Last Jedi is available via the Movies Anywhere app. You have access to a music-only version of The Last Jedi, full movie, but with no dialogue, VFX, or backgrounds, just John's score. Impressive. I may get that. Just to see if I can listen to it and imagine my way through the movie. That would be pretty great. I thought Williams did a great job with the score in that movie, by the way. I really do. I would love to hear that. I might have to go and check that out. And where do you say it was available? Via the Movies Anywhere app. I will have to go and check that out. And I don't know if it's like if it's on the Movies Anywhere. Is that free? Are they offering that for free? They can't possibly be offering it for free. That would be kind of insane if they did. Like insane, but awesome if they did. I'll have to go check that out. All right. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of this. I absolutely love doing the show, and I love that you guys come along and do it with me. I love the topics. I love the conversation, but don't let the conversation end, guys. Jump down to the comment section. Leave your thoughts and opinions on any and all the topics we discussed about today. Just remember, we're talking to fellow film fans as we're doing it. Even when we disagree and want to have some really cool debates, just remember, treat each other like we're on the same team, like we are fellow film fans together. Just treat each other that way, and that'll go a long way. Hey, listen, guys, don't forget, make sure you're following me on social media. Jump on Twitter and just follow me on Twitter, simply at John Campea. And again, guys, don't forget, I'll be back again tomorrow morning with the next episode of the John Campea Show. Open mic again, of course, tomorrow afternoon. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.